I will never get tired of making these videos, I think. Hello and welcome to my channel, the Danish Readaholic. Today is my second episode of Bacon Books and today I'm making cookies. I think without further ado we should just get started so we can get to the baking, get to the talking, and get to me tasting what I actually made. So, I will be back. I don't know why there are so many bees outside my window. Well, I do because we have a beehive at our rooftop, but it is what it is. So today I am making cookies simply because I didn't really feel like doing anything too extravagant, and you can never really go wrong with a cookie in my opinion. So I'm actually making 4 different types, and I'm starting out with making the base, which will be the same for each type basically, and then I'm mixing it all together to get all delicious. So the different types that I'm making is one with marzipan and chocolate. It is this Danish treat that is called marzipan bread, and it is marzipan covered in chocolate, as you can see here. I am cutting that up and putting it in the dough. Next up, I'm also doing some tiny caramel things covered in milk chocolate. These are really, really great, but they were so sticky and so difficult to cut up, but then I'm doing that and mixing it in. Next up, I'm doing a peanut butter and banana one, and this was definitely something different because I was afraid that the texture would be too mushy, but I think it turned out fine, as you will see later. And finally, I'm doing a rocky road, which is basically where I learned the base recipe that I'm using. And cutting all of these up was so difficult, but the marshmallows was definitely the worst. Cutting them up was such a task, and they kept sticking to my fingers, and it was just not fun. But I mean, I do love a rocky road cookie, so it was kind of worth it in the end. So as you can see, I'm just cutting all of the last ingredients up. I'm also adding some chopped almonds just to give it a little bit more of a crunch, and of course chocolate chips. And then I am making some gigantic cookies. I made the rocky roads a little bit too big, but everything turned out great in the end. And I think it's about time to do some taste tests. Alright, we have the cookie. I think I am actually going to start off with tasting one of them, and then I'm going to tell you what the topic of today is, even though you will probably have seen it from the title. But I'm going to properly introduce it. Okay, I'm going to start with the one that I'm the least excited for, and I think that will be the big one here. That is a rocky road, and I've made it before, so I kind of know how it's going to taste. Very, very yummy, as always. So today I'm actually going to be talking about the importance of the cover, and for me, especially the font. Let's all get cozy and talk about some covers. It is no secret that I am a judgmental asshole when it comes to covers. I really like doing the UK versus US. I also thought of doing old versus new, but I feel like most of them will be the same as other people have done, so I'm gonna keep doing multiple versions or multiple rounds of UK versus US, and I have one coming soon. But that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about covers and what I notice and what I like and don't like about covers. But before we get into that, I do kind of just want to talk about myself a little bit, because as of June 2021, I was officially, I am officially a graphic designer. Like, I got my diploma and everything. I could potentially work in the field, and that is definitely something I want to do at some point. I just haven't gotten the opportunity yet, and I am kind of happy, or I am happy with my job situation right now. So I think at some point down the line, I would like to be a cover designer. That would be awesome. What we basically learn at graphic design school is compositions. It is to catch like a feeling and how to balance everything out. And one big thing that we also learned is matching up different fonts, because not every fonts go together. And I did have a book that would have been the perfect example. I'm just gonna insert it here. I've talked about this before. This is Hiiya. And as you can see, there's like 3 different fonts, all of them very characteristic and very special in their own right. But because all of them are like that, they don't work together. But that is just some of the things that we were taught when I was at graphic design school. Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to design a book cover. We designed magazine covers instead. It was one or the other, and our teachers basically picked. I would have liked book covers, but I have done it like at home. That being said, I am not an illustrator. I cannot draw to save my life, but I can combine everything. So I would be the person requesting the artwork or requesting photos or getting like the idea as to what it would look like, and then hiring someone to do the actual art. Just to clarify, if you didn't know what a graphic designer's role in cover design is. One of the things that we talked about a lot at graphic design school was that it was very important that through the graphic material for a said company or magazine or whatever you were doing, it was important that you could see or at least get a feeling as to what this brand was, so that just by looking at it you could tell if it was accounting or a grocery store, something like that, because there are specific things that fit each thing. And I feel like that is also very relevant when we're talking in the context of books, because you can usually tell just by looking at a book if it is a fantasy, if it is thriller. I will say there are a couple that I feel like break the norm, which we like as well, but usually there is some type of tell when you look at a book that can tell you what kind of genre we're talking about, which is a good thing, because that is how you find the books that you actually want to read and don't have to go through every single book just because they all look the same. So a cover has a big importance as to telling you which type of book it is, and also kind of grasping your attention for the very first time. If the cover wasn't gravitating, you wouldn't even pick it up to see if it was something for you. You would be looking at titles and maybe be like, ooh, do I recognize that title? Or do I not? Even a spine, even something as simple as a spine, will have that initial pull for you to grab it and see if that book is something for you. I'm actually already going to take a little break here before we get into more talk about what it is for me specifically that makes me grab a book. Let's try another one. We're gonna do this one. This is a Dumle cookie. Dumle, I don't know how international the brand is, so I'm just gonna explain it as if you don't know what it is. So it's basically this little chocolatey treat with caramel on the inside. I am excited to see how it tastes. So my boyfriend just interrupted my filming to say that the banana one that I did was phenomenal. So I'm excited for that one. Save it for last. When talking about the pull of like a cover, there is something very obvious that I feel like I have to talk about, because I used to do this every time I went to the bookstore. And that is, of course, cover buying. There is nothing wrong with that. First of all, I have found some great books by just cover buying. I have also found some awful books, so I mean like 50-50, you know? But the thing I want to say is that sometimes a cover can just grab you so much that you're like, I don't even know, like I don't even need to know what this book is about. I just know I want to read it. To me, that can really go both ways, as I just explained. I have had some great books be cover buys, but I've also had some very awful ones. I did get one, this was a gift so it doesn't really count as a cover buy, but I did have one that I absolutely hated. I also have one, I think I added it to my wish list as like a cover buy in that sense. And then my best friend Caitlin got it for me and I didn't like it at all. So sometimes the cover can be deceiving, but it's not always the cover's fault, because now what I am doing with the whole cover buying, I am cover browsing. So basically what I do is when I go on to Goodreads to see if there's something new or something I should be adding to my list of books that I want to read, my TBR, I basically just browse, and whenever there's a cover or a title that grabs me, it's usually the cover that I go for, but sometimes it is the title. If it is a cover where I'm like, you're looking interesting, I will go and see what the book is about. So that is my new way of cover buying, where I'm not actually buying it, I'm just adding it to my TBR instead, if it is something that I want to read, because this time around I do actually read what it is about. But my reading has also changed a lot since I used to, cover buy. Let's now get into what it is actually about, and that is, what is a good cover to me. A good cover to me is something that tells me about the story without telling me too much. It is giving me a vibe, it is giving me either character art, or it is giving me a place, it is giving me an item, or it's just giving me this overall feeling of what I can expect from the book. Let me give you a couple examples. First up, I want to talk a little bit about Romanov. Romanov, by looking at the cover, gives me very little about the story, which I like, but it gives me a feeling as to where we are, like where the book is set. The building up here, combined with the woman and the drawings, the details, it will instantly give me this Russian vibe, or let's say Eastern European, because it doesn't necessarily has to be Russian. At least I learned that when I went to Estonia recently, because they have similar buildings. So Eastern European vibes, that is what I am getting from this book. And also, given the title, I'm pretty sure it's gonna have to do something with Anastasia. So that is obviously very fitting. Now, talking about the title, what I like about the font here is that from a distance, and I'm saying that because I'm looking at like my viewfinder, and I know where it is. I can see it, but I can't read it from afar. Both a good and a bad thing. It will make you want to move forward and see what it's actually called. And also it integrates very well with the design itself, and I really like that, obviously. Also, these small texts like "not even royal blood can stop bullets," and also up here it says "a novel." It fits very, very well and doesn't look misplaced on the cover. That is like a cohesive cover to me. And as I said, it gives me a feeling as to where we are. The font is very, very simple, but because of the way that it's kind of been combined into the pattern, like we have a few things going over the letters that makes it seem like a part of the design, which is, we like that. Let me find another one that shows off a different type of vibe. So for this one, I will talk about items because this cover, again, it doesn't give me much about what it is actually about. However, it does tell me that there will be some importance centered around some type of blade, which there is. I will say that is not the case all the time when there is a sword on the cover. Sometimes there will also be animals on the cover, and they will have no relevance to the story itself. It is more to create a feeling as to what type of book it is. I can also give you an example of that, but this will have some type of importance to the story. I know because I read it. For this one, I'm actually not the biggest fan of the font. I like the cover. I don't love it. What is different from this one and Romanov is basically that they've tried to incorporate the title into the artwork itself with some of the flames going through it, but it's not done to such an extent where it feels like, yes, I can see it going through it. Maybe if the blade had gone like in between, could you imagine that? So that it is more incorporated and it doesn't feel like a beautiful picture with text on top of it, because that is a little bit how it feels right now. With this little thing, that is also kind of the type of thing that I don't like. I don't mind, I don't remember what it's called, but kind of recommendation kind of things on the book. But I don't need all the information as to who the person, and I would like to know who said it, but I don't want to know, at least not on the front cover. It can be on the inside, but I don't want to know on the front cover what this person is known for, because sometimes it just takes up a lot of space that I don't feel like it should. But we do, as I said, also get a feeling as to what this is. Looking at it, you instantly know that it is a fantasy. My final example, I've already forgotten what that was. A book with items on the cover where the items doesn't really have an importance to the story. These Violent Delights. Let me tell you the importance of this. I don't remember the name of the gangs, but I know one of them, or at least maybe both of them, are flowers. So one of them might be white roses or some kind of flower. So that has an importance to the story. But aside from that, all it basically tells us is, with the Japanese dragon or Chinese dragon, it tells us that we're in Asia with just looking at it. Also, I don't know what that means, but that is also an indicator as to the location of the book itself. So even though we're filled with items that maybe should have a relevance to the story, it doesn't have that big of a relevance, but it does tell us where we are. This is one of the covers that once you get into it, some of the things will make sense. I've already been rambling, so now it's time to try the next cookie. I'm gonna go for this one. This is basically, it's called Anton Bao, which is, I'm pretty sure, a Danish company that does these marzipan bread loaf things. It has nothing to do with bread. It's just called marzipan bread. And what it is like marzipan covered in chocolate. It is very simple and very, very, like, either you love it or you hate it. But it all depends on if you like marzipan or not. I do. Now that was a good cookie. I also kind of want to talk about what my favorite things on covers are and what my least favorite things on covers are. When looking at the covers that tend to be my favorites, it is usually something that has an item on it. Blade of Secrets, These Violent Delights, stuff like that. I know I just said Blade of Secrets isn't one of my favorites, but just so you know what style we're going to. The reason that Blade of Secret is not my favorite is because of the font. We'll talk about it. But usually my favorite covers have an item on it and some kind of background. It doesn't have to tell me a lot about what the story is about. I just need that tiny bit. My least favorite thing, realistic people. Don't do it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that that is their favorite type of covers when there is an actual human being on there, or at least like a very realistic looking person on there. So I think it's everyone that kind of agrees that we don't want that. But I don't know, I could be wrong. Let's talk about the fonts. For me, as a graphic designer, I have a little rule to myself that if it is a font where I can name the font when I'm looking at it, it is not right to use it on a cover. I know most of the basic ones, like most of the ones that you have in Word or whatever. I know a couple ones that you have to buy or download, but that's because they're my favorites. I use them a lot. So one of them, because that could potentially be used on a cover, I will not be mad because it's fine. The only reason I know it is because I use it all the damn time. What I'm trying to say is don't come at me with Times New Roman or Comic Sans. Don't do it. But just in general, if I can name a font, I will not like it. I will not like it if I can look at it and be like, I know the name of that. And I don't know why. It is just, whenever I'm like, oh, that's Times New Roman, let's say that. I'm like, why did they use that? That's not really special. They didn't really put much of an effort into it. Sometimes it will fit the book, but that being said, there is something else. There's always something else. Something more special that will have the same feeling as Times New Roman, but a different stylistic, like a small stylistic difference that will elevate it. So, as I mentioned before, a lot of the time when there is a cover that does not work for me, it's because of the font. Over the last year, I've noticed fonts more and more, simply because when I work with it on a daily basis and look at the fonts and what works together and what doesn't, it is just really something that I notice when I feel like that it does not work together, and or when I feel like it doesn't fit the design of the book. An example of this would be Graceling. I freaking hate the font on the US cover, but I love the artwork. I feel like that could have been done differently and better. All that being said though, there are no rules. There are guidelines and things you should take into consideration when making a cover for something. But there are no rules, no specific rules. It is basically one big playground. You can do what you like. If there were rules, we wouldn't have something called a bad cover. And what is a bad cover is very objective. I could absolutely hate a cover that my neighbor would love or something like that. Cover design is objective and that is why it will always be something that is fun to discuss. Do you like the cover? Do you hate the cover? What do you feel when you look at it? What do you get from it? Maybe some of the things that I talked about when looking at the covers, what I get, like what feeling I get when looking at the covers, you will maybe not get the same feeling. You will be like, what's she on about? And lastly, I also just wanted to say that me being a graphic designer does not mean that I can look at a perfectly put together cover and feel bored. So just because I understand that it is subjectively beautiful, the setup is great, and it fits with the design of the cover, I can look at it and see that my professional view would like the cover, but my personal taste is different and therefore I don't like the cover. So just because I am a graphic designer, I don't know why I did that. So just because I am a graphic designer doesn't mean that I will like every single cover that is stylistically beautiful and fits that vibe that it's supposed to go for. I will also, as I said, I freaking love the Graceland cover. I hate the font. I still love it. It's one of my favorite covers. I can look away from it sometimes. I think I need a cookie. So the final cookie we have here is a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. We like it. This is a banana and peanut butter with chocolate chips. Very soft. That was really nice. Alright, so I have now been rambling for a while now about covers, what I like, what I don't, and I feel like I've covered the subject now. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any questions about graphic design, font, covers, whatever. Also, tell me what your all-time favorite cover is. If you just want to let me know that you're here but don't know what to comment, you can always leave a green heart. If you like this video, please hit the like icon, and if you want to see more of my bookish content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will mean the world to me. And until I see you next time, bye!